This is Rebase.
So what do you do for a living? Oh yeah? How's that? These are questions you hear on a regular basis. And maybe you used to answer with excitement, with passion, with joy, but now you dread even answering the question. Well, I'm here to tell you this is not a show that's going to tell you how to quit your job and start a new company. Maybe that's not for everybody. It is, however, a show that will help you to rediscover your purpose, that passion, that joy, and that fulfillment in what it is you do. Or, if nothing else, you might figure out what it is you should be doing on a daily basis. This is Rebase. We're here to help you transform your career and change your life. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rebase. I'm here again with Elatia, my lovely and beautiful co-host.
Oh, Shaun, you're so good to me.
Can I say, I speak the truth. I say what I see. We're also here with the cleaning crew here at my office. So if you hear a little bit of background noise, even after I use my expert audio editing skills to clean this up, that's somebody dropping a paperclip 2 floors below me, and this mic picks up everything. But Elatia, how are you today?
I am fantastic today. I am coming at us at this conversation from Tucson, Arizona. I am creating some design magic with the university here, the University of Arizona in Tucson. And so although I'm working, right now I'm looking out on the mountains of the desert. It's pretty clutch. How are you? What are you doing?
I am also
you look
excellent.
Like you maybe went to a football game this weekend.
What gave that away? Is it the bruises? Is it the Yes, no. I was in North Carolina this weekend, watching my alma mater, Florida State, not lose a game for once, which was lovely. But nice. I was in Raleigh and then Durham, and I was watching Florida State Duke, which gorgeous campus. Duke, way to go, Dukies, or Devils made of blue. Whatever you guys are. The campus is absolutely gorgeous. We got to see the outside of Cameron Fieldhouse, which is really cool, where they play their actual sport that they focus on. Sorry, a little shit talking. Was out there.
You never.
Never. I'm completely straight-laced, good Christian man.
This insert laugh here.
Exactly.
Real and the crowd.
I'm going to find a laugh track and we're going to probably use that.
We have to, I think.
Absolutely. So I went to Florida State Duke. We tailgated for a little bit and walked over, and the forecast for the day said mostly cloudy, overcast, high of 72, which was wonderful until noon hit when kickoff was, and the sun came out and there's not a cloud in the sky, and all of a sudden it was 80 degrees. And,
ooh, toasty.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the warmer games I've been to, and I've been at games in Tallahassee at 102 degrees, but, great game, great experience. Love North Carolina. Got to see some family, visit with some friends. So now we're here, and
we are here.
We're here. Where else will we be, right? We're here to discuss the future of work. Hashtag it.
Hashtag future of work.
Yep. And specifically today, there's an article that's been circulating recently on Singularity Hub and a couple other places. Elatia, you sent this over to me and brought it to my attention, and I love this, being a nerd and, being obsessed with how people's careers are going to change and the skills they need to adapt. And this is an article titled, "How Technology is Transforming the Way We Teach and Learn." And this was written, no joke, October 9th this year. It could have been written 10 years ago because technology has been changing the way we teach and learn for decades at this point.
Yeah.
But people are finally starting to take notice of how it's really changing the dynamics, not just of education, but of as far as education is like K through 12 or college or things like that. But in the workplace, continuing education, those things, why do you think it's just now taking hold?
I think it's just now taking hold because people have a tendency to want to hold on to the way that things were and have this sort of desire to okay, so when the market crashed in 2008 and so many people lost their jobs and all this stuff happened, there was this real push to return to normal, but normal being how it was before, not how it is now and how it's changing moving forward. And so it's my sense is that there's this real sort of need to let's keep with what we're familiar with until there comes a pain point, either economically or something that forces us over the hump, which frankly is one of the reasons that that I've got such a fire under my butt to bring the conversation about the future of work to today as opposed to somewhere out there, is because it's already happening. It's here. It's here. It's here. It's here. And so as much as we want to say, okay, I'll just keep doing what I was doing before, perhaps a more powerful strategy could be, given all this, what do we want to create moving forward?
Right. And with that, without waxing philosophical completely, I promise.
Come on.
No, it isn't.
You.
It is interesting. I mean, a crisis, like you mentioned. So the crash, the recession, the depression, whatever you want to call it, 2008, people wanted to come back from that, back to normal, back to the way things were. And when a crisis like that happens, people are clinging on to what's familiar.
Yeah.
But if there wasn't that crash, economic factors aside and how it was inevitable and all these things, people are more open to progress, to change, to, making things better, to getting with the 21st or sometimes 20th century on how technology can, improve our lives, improve our children's lives, improve our work lives. But as soon as a crisis hits, it's like, okay, let me cling on to whatever it was I was doing before. And if you don't take me back there, I'm going to assume you're a charlatan and a witch, and I'm probably going to burn you.
Yes. Totally. Only my experience in a few cases as far around the future of work. And I think, for me, one of the things that I've learned is changing language around what technology means and the impact of technology. Because so I had an opportunity to meet with a really great guy who's president of EVB, the big advertising agency, advertising and PR. And we were talking about the future of work, what it means and why people are so scared of it. And one of the first things that comes into light is like, okay, so why don't people talk about work? Like, this is the one thing that we all spend all this time doing, and we've got solutions for like our sex lives, we've got solutions for our family lives, really effective, powerful solutions for our work lives. Why? Because it's work. And work has this thing of being the thing that we're not supposed to derive joy out of, but rather like this thing that we do to get the money that we have.
Right. It's supposed to suck so that we can do the things we want to do, but we don't talk about it. I mean, the intro to the podcast is, emblematic of that, right?
Yes.
It's kind of symbolic. It's like, I know that once upon a time, I used to be able to say, when people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I work in software. And there have been points where it's like, yeah, I work with computers because I'm tired of explaining to you exactly what I do. And it's not all that exciting at this current job or whatever. And, for me, at least, it ebbs and flows, but you're right. Work has gotten this stigma of this thing that you do to get a paycheck so that either now or when you're 70, you can do the things you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And when is now the good time to do all the good things?
Right. So what did he say about like this? Sorry, because I interrupted you completely. What did he say about this stigma around work, and like, how do you change people's?
So that was really the crux of the conversation, and that's still a big question mark on the table. And a pathway to getting to that is a game that he suggested to me, which I've been noodling on since we were hanging out in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, which is the game of you say, they interpret. Because I was explaining, he's like, okay, what's been the challenge in getting this message across to you? Because the reason why we came together in the first place was we need to get this message out. It's got to get to people on mass scale so that we can create powerful solutions. And so when you talk about, especially like at a university or at an MBA program, that robots or jobs are going to be computerized at 47% of what exists today, and all of the careers, in the next however many years, by the time the kids who are in elementary school are in the job, like 75% of the jobs aren't going to exist. So I say that, and I see that as opportunity, because it's like, ooh, what could we explore here? What could we find? But what people hear is, everything that I've been up to is invalid. I'm not prepared to confront or to be successful in this new space. So it becomes this affront instead of opportunity. And so I'm really noodling on this challenge now. How do we create language around this so that it's not just, those of us who are geeky and excited about possibility in the future of work talking about it, but rather that it becomes accessible and tangible.
Totally. Excuse me. I totally agree with you on that. And granted, you and I are the types, generally speaking, that are a little bit more embracing of change, of uncertainty. Myself, not so much even a couple of years ago, but in recent years, being able to appreciate that things are changing, they're constantly changing, and that that means that there are countless opportunities with things changing. But, if I look back on my 2014, 2015 self, even being a technologist, as things are changing, I'm thinking, am I going to be out of date? Am I going to be, obsolete? Am I going to have the skills I need to have in order to be able to survive in this, new economy? Or even in my own industry, as languages change and new platforms get introduced, it's like, I feel like I'm constantly just spinning, trying to keep up. So, it's a very good question to pose to people. How do you get comfortable with the fact that you're going to be uncomfortable and you have to be a little uncomfortable?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, so a piece of that links directly to the topic of this article, which is how education's changing thanks to technology, which, I've been talking with some senior leadership at a couple of Fortune 500s, and I've been talking at some senior leadership at a couple of major universities. And this notion of, because of this continuous need to learn, so more stuff is coming, so we've got to learn it. We've got to catch our skills up to whatever's happening. This idea of on-demand education, as opposed to something that you do, scheduled however many months or years out, or that sort of thing, and figuring out ways to disseminate content across technology platforms that's easier for people to access when they need it, instead of when somebody else decides that it's going to be a challenge, right? Like something happens in the marketplace, you want to be able to go immediately to a solution so that you can help, so that you can solve the problem.
Right. I mean, as soon as there's a new trend in the market, especially in a digital marketplace, you don't want to wait for Harvard. As much as I love the Harvard Business Review, you guys rock. I don't want to wait for Harvard to come up with a curriculum on how to succeed in the sharing economy. I want somebody to figure it out, put something out there, and I want to be able to access that from anywhere I'm at, and not wait to go through a degree program for that. One of the things that I'm learning, and part of this is my own bias, but one of the things that I'm seeing and observing is that people who are relying on certifications, people who are relying on, the authority that comes from having a particular degree, a particular certification, a group of certifications, or private, whether they be private, public sector, whatever it is, those are the people that, they're looking in the wrong direction as far as how to establish authority on certain things. Granted, they're oftentimes waiting for permission to be an authority on something, which is why they go and, seek an MBA, they seek a master's degree in computer science, they seek these various certifications. They feel like that gives them permission to be successful or to be an authority on something, as opposed to those folks who just say, I took an 8-week course on iTunes U and I know this shit. Test me on it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I just before we got on this call, I was teaching my Design Your Dream Job class at the University of Toronto. And one of the central cores of today's conversation is this idea that you don't ever have to have done anything in order to do something. And unless it's required by your profession that you need a piece of paper, right? Doctor, lawyer, that sort of thing. All you need to do is start doing the thing, and then you've done the thing, if that makes sense, right? So like a lot of people come, well, how did you start doing speaking? How did you get to be a speaker? Well, the short and flip and true answer is I just started. I just, who needs somebody to speak about something? Or I would, knew I was coming into town. Hey, can I talk about X? Similar thing around this project for the future of work. It's not like I went to school to learn something about the future of work. Granted, my past professional experience leading up to it feeds into the idea, but I became, but I'm becoming, I continue to be a student about it, but so I know something about it because I've been doing the doing.
Yeah, absolutely. They apparently started buffing the floors here sometime soon, or sometime recently. So
I can't hear it on this end.
Well, that's good.
I'm oblivious to the floor buffing.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Like, I'm sitting here like being an asshole and typing, but
oh my God, you're such an asshole. Oh wait, does that give us explicit? Are we explicit yet, or are we skating close to the edge?
No, there's a maybe, and there's a bunch of conflicting quotes here, but like Walt Disney said, the way to get started is quit talking and begin doing. I want to say that it was. I'm gonna butcher it anyway.
Butcher it.
The best, like the only key to getting started is getting started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You just got to do. And in so many cases, it just almost doesn't matter what, almost.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
try.
Take a step, right? Don't focus on doing things perfectly. Note to self.
Wait, Mr. Recovering Perfectionist, what do you mean?
Exactly. Focus on just doing something. Do something because it terrifies you. Do something because you're going to be terrible at it. Do something because it interests you.
Yeah. Don't
do something because you need to be excellent at it. This was a long-standing in my life, just a long-standing sort of belief. It's like, why would I take this on if I'm not going to try to be the best in the world at it? Yeah. Right. When I was playing sports as a child, or even as like a teen, growing up, like I love the sport of baseball, and I played it because I thought that I could have a future in playing baseball. And once I got to the point where I realized I probably wasn't going to play professional baseball because I was all of 140 pounds soaking wet out of like high school, it's like, well, I'm going to stop doing that because now I can't be excellent at it, as opposed to just doing it or trying something because it would teach me lessons. It would give me a skill. It would do these things. And, I'm a huge fan of people that I see now that are sort of doing this unofficial return to like apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to be a great software developer. I have no experience. I'm going to find somebody who needs a software developer or somebody who is one. And I'm going to say, hey, can I do stuff for you for free?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like, I know you don't have to pay me. I'm not experienced. I suck at this because I haven't been doing it for a while. I've only been doing it for a couple months, but teach me. And holy crap, there's no greater appeal to the ego than being asked, like, teach me your ways, Yoda. Right?
Or no, dude, there is no try.
Yeah, right. But so going back a little bit to kind of what you were talking about, it's going really, it must just be my headphones at this point. Going back
the voices in your head are trying to tell you something. I don't know what, but
but they're like speaking Spanish, and that's a little weird. I don't really know. I haven't been having margaritas tonight. Going back to the conversation you were having, with your friend in contact, I really think people's problem is self-awareness and admitting to themselves that change is coming. Mm-hmm. You may or may not be prepared. You're probably some degree from 0% to 200% prepared for the coming change. How do you admit to yourself that you're prepared for some things, but not for everything? And how do you then say, I need to prepare myself. I need to up-level my skills. I need to do these things in order to be ready for the coming technological revolution where robots, and I would hesitate to use that term, and I would guard you against using that term, advise you to not use robots. AI maybe. But when people say robots are taking your jobs, they're like, oh, okay, Terminator and RoboCop are taking my fucking job. And,
No.
but people, to give people the opportunity and the freedom to be able to say, yes, I am not as advanced as an AI that can do my job. What can I do that an AI can't do as well as me? What could I look into that would improve my value, increase my value in the job marketplace?
Yeah, I think the first piece is getting into the space of that it's not a loss, right? It's not like everything you've ever done up until today is worthless or is not going to be useful. Those core problem solving skills, probably core technology, probably core, whatever that has helped you move forward, you're going to be able to build upon that.
I would argue, sorry, not to interrupt you, I would argue that's your most valuable asset. If you're looking at what an AI or a technology platform doesn't have, they don't have your experience. They don't have your lessons learned. They don't have the nuance of how to deal with particular customers. You could have an AI that will do customer service, but they don't have your 4 years of dealing with difficult customers. All those lessons learned are your asset. They're not something to throw away. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely not something to throw away. And we also don't know what's going to happen. So with self-driving cars, 8 years ago, we said it was impossible because the technology, it was way too complicated or sophisticated an algorithm for the technology to learn. And here we are, and they exist. And so
I just watched earlier.
I know, check you out. So in case for everybody listening who doesn't follow Shaun on other social media, Shaun got a new baby. Shaun, do you want to share about this?
Self-driving cars are here. The technology is here. This thing has more sensors than I have emotions in my body, and it detects cars in front of me, cars behind me, everything on either side. There are cameras all over the damn place. So to your point, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, we said cars will never be able to drive themselves. Our infrastructure, our roads are not built for it. My car changes lanes for me if I turn on the turn signal, and that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't know. And again, that's not to say that that's bad, right? That we don't know how things are going to impact stuff. It just is. And so the first piece is just understanding what's happening, what industries are in ascension and in decline. So what industries are most likely to get impacted by this kind of technology. The third thing is, I equate this, and I think we've spoken about this before, but it's sort of like learning it's like when you surf. You can't control the ocean. You can't. It's not going to happen. You can learn to read the tide. You can learn to, surf in choppier conditions and in easier conditions. Those are the kinds of things and patterns that you can learn how to do as you become better and better and more adept at it. So practicing and flexing that muscle of risk tolerance is huge. And then okay, so building on what I know today, knowing what's coming down the pike, what do I want to create? I keep going back to that question, but that's the crux of it. So given all of this, what do we want to create?
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love the surfing analogy. Granted, I love it for completely biased reasons, but I might have mentioned this in episode 2 about, agile development and how the analogy that is used in one of my favorite books, Practices of an Agile Developer. If you're in tech, read it, then read it again. It talks about how people think of software development as driving down a road. And it's not driving down a road. It's more like surfing, because you're building something and all of a sudden, no, actually, we didn't want that button to be blue. We wanted it to be green. Well, why'd you want it to be green? Well, we want everything to be green. Well, we also don't need these text fields. And those text fields should be drop downs. Oh, the drop downs should be checklists. Oh, they should be radio button lists. And you should make them data driven and completely different for each country. So it is surfing because you're constantly running into new obstacles or opportunities. Yeah. And your ability to navigate, your ability to be agile or adaptable is really the best skill you could possibly be building in the modern workplace, right?
Yeah, hands down, hands down. And as a sidebar over here, since we started this call, like the sun is setting. So like I'm more and more in like, I'm telling you like a ghost story for those of you who are watching the video. It's kind of awesome.
I'm glad the lights are on downstairs for me, because otherwise I'd be a little bit scared.
I know, but I'm kind of digging it. I'm like, ooh, now we're going to like predict the future. This is great.
Turns out it was his dad all along.
Oh, it is Halloween month. Maybe this is like, oh, I just had a great idea about a Halloween episode. That's more later on that.
Perfect. Surprise. It's no spoilers, folks.
None at all.
We get it.
So yeah, the idea that getting comfortable with the stuff that we don't know it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do. And instead of it being a bad thing, because so again, in the face of, okay, so these 47% of jobs are going to be computerized, the flip side of that is $8 trillion in economic value is going to be created. Meaning with job retraining and shifting, there's actually going to be a lot more available to us, but it's different.
Well, and again, going back to what you were saying about not knowing how the market's going to change as far as the job market makes people scared, because they're like, look, I do data entry every day, and that's how I pay my bills. And if you're telling me a computer can do that, then it means I'm out of a job. With not knowing, they can't predict what job it is that they're going to have. It could be recalibrating the damn machines that are doing the data entry for them, but they don't know. So that uncertainty leaves them with a lot of, just really internal strife and things like that they can't deal with. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind going to this article here for a minute, because it's got some really good points that basically it's like they're reading my diary.
Ooh.
Right?
Ooh, the diary of Sean Martin, Sean P.
Nobody should ever read that sober.
This is for the public files.
Right. So from this article, the subheading is Integrated Lifelong Learning Systems, which I think you and I both know what that's talking about, and we can both agree with it. And it says, and I quote, education should not be something that you do at a specific institution for a specific period of time for a certification. Again, certification is kind of bullshit. That's my aside.
Oh, wait, are we over the explicit line now?
Sure, I'm sure. Every episode should be. I'm not going to mark it until I get flagged. So that was in square brackets. Instead, it should be a lifelong journey of exploration, self-discovery, and liberation driven by intrinsic rewards.
Yes.
So not seeking the next pay bump, not seeking the next promotion, whatever the title is, but intrinsically, like what makes you come alive, right? Excellent. Yeah. Again, sidebar. Effective education needs to be integrated into our everyday experiences, including entertainment.
Yes.
According to the Education 2030 report, future education will be tailored to users, they quote, across all age groups, from prenatal programs to programs for the elderly that provide knowledge, work, and leisure enjoyment.
Yeah.
Excellent. A lifelong learning mindset is essential in order to be employable in the future workforce.
Yes.
A report by the World Economic Forum revealed that almost 65% of the jobs elementary school students will be doing in the future do not even exist yet.
Yes.
New industries are...
So I stand corrected. Earlier I said 75. So that was ish. It's 65.
No, it's you versus the World Economic Forum. I think you can take them.
They've got the data. I love those guys.
I mean, and I don't even know like how recent this report is, but it also says new industries are consistently being born and dying out through disruption. Future workers need to be able to leverage online MOOCs. You know what that is? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, like those big online courses. Those big free ones are like came with like initially Khan Academy and other models, but where mass amounts of people can come online. And
it's just weird because it sounds like MOOCs, and I just assume that these are all huge classes.
That is how people say it. Yeah.
Like, no, it's not just a bunch of Italian guys teaching you how to like shake down the convenience store owner for money. Anyway, future workers need to be able to leverage online MOOCs and the vast array. I can't say it without smiling now.
I know, because it's all good, right?
Right. And the vast array of educational resources available to them in order to gain on-demand skills.
Mm-hmm.
So the next paragraph is something I definitely want to get into, but I totally agree with this, that how do we shift the mindset? Let's not even say at a young age, because at a young age, like that's like parenting, like 3,000 level. But let's say when kids are like 9th, 10th grade beyond, how do you get them to the point where they realize you don't just learn, take the test, pass the test, take the next test, go to college, take all these tests, pass, and then you're done? Because a lot of people believe that whether they're doing it or not, that's it.
Yeah.
I got the degree. Now I get the job. Now you pay me. I do some work and then I retire eventually.
Yep.
How do you turn that on its head so that people realize I'm never done learning? You know, in my field, in my previous field as a recovering software developer, I always knew that you had to keep up with the latest and greatest. Even if you weren't using it, you had to understand the trends, because otherwise you're going to get lapped. People are going to pass you by. You're not going to get hired for new gigs. But if you are, and I'm not picking on anybody here, but if you're a high school English teacher, you probably feel like, I learned how to teach high school English. I'm done learning now. And you learn from your students, you learn from your experiences, but you're not constantly learning actively, consciously, right? How do you get people in that conscious learning mindset? And you can say you scare the shit out of them, letting them know their job's going to be gone if they don't.
Yeah. So sure. I mean, I think, right. Why and how do human beings become motivated? Through pleasure or through pain, and meaning avoiding pain. So if there's a threat or a perceived threat, then people tend to act. Where I think this is a hypothesis upon which I'm laying some bets around what the future is going to look like, and what some solutions around that space are going to look like, is that it's not going to come first from, like elementary school or high school, because for a whole series of reasons of how, in general, like forget charter schools, I'm not talking about that kind of thing. There's some interesting models out there like Acton Academy, but
Sorry, like what?
Acton Academy.
Okay, I need to link in the show notes.
It's a school whose learning methods are based very much on Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. It's phenomenal. Nice. But where I think it's going to happen first is in places like the community college level, trade school kind of level, and universities that are maybe not, they aren't top 10 or top 25. Because my sense is, through both what I've been reading and people who I've been talking to, the folks who are at top tier universities are going to still tend to go along with traditional corporates. So those jobs will kind of be protected in some way, meaning those people going into those jobs are going to be more insulated or isolated from the shifting technological change. I think both were more impact and consequently or subsequently more opportunity are in places where it might be harder to get into a Goldman Sachs because you don't necessarily have a university degree of title. So, but rather, and though, because of that, the opportunity for shift around change and constant learning and what this could mean, and getting myself ready for the gig economy, which really is going to be the way that most of us are earning our money. A lot of people today see that and they're like, that means I'm going to go work at TaskRabbit and build shelves at IKEA, right? Like not anymore. Mm-hmm. And so how do we effectively create opportunity around this? So that's where I see places of constant education, constant plugging in, constant learning through online platforms, through MOOCs, through revised and reformed continuing studies kinds of schools. That's where I see massive opportunity available.
That's really interesting. I never targeted or thought about those places as the source of this continuing education. I would, maybe this is my own bias, but I would argue that people who look at community colleges, for example, as places that offer continuing education, night school, all these sort of after-hour opportunities, I always viewed that with I would say through a less than favorable lens. It's like, great, I'm glad you're going back to school and you're going to community college at night and you're figuring out how to use Microsoft Word and things like that. But it always seemed to me to be, and again, my personal bias, but it always seemed to me to be like, this slightly like step down from doing what it was you're supposed to do, which was get the college degree in the first place.
What we're supposed to do, which is get the college degree in the first place, which as we're starting, and we're just at the beginning of this, but when somebody figures out that they can go to a certificate course at that community college in partnership with Google and walk out of there in less than a year making 125 or 150 grand, guess who's not going to four-year school?
Oh, for sure.
Right. And so, and these, especially with all the student debt credit, like there's whole other economic factors there.
Let's have a conversation about the student loan crisis. Go. No, I'm kidding.
So these places, so I see, and particularly, again, so this is my bias, these are the things I'm discovering, diving into, particularly cities like Chicago that have really progressive politics around educational opportunity and offering it to people who otherwise wouldn't have it. This is right ground for building programs around the future of work that are going to have baked into them, here's a nimbleness in crafting your opportunity. Here's a way to be flexible. Here's a way to be smart about the gig economy. Here's a way to get yourself trained and retrained and plugged into places that are going to give you retraining as the world continues to change. Because again, as this middle chunk, at least as it exists today, this middle chunk of jobs starts to shift around, I think that the first folks impacted are going to be people in kind of this middle space. Also with, the advent of, or the increase of apprenticeships, the increase of, again, of need for continuous learning. I just think that this is the right space. I just think, this is,
I'm totally with you. And I love the fact that community colleges, charter schools to a degree, these places that maybe don't have as much red tape and as much overhead to deal with, that can move a little bit more quickly. Going back to our conversation about agility and adaptability.
Yeah.
How do I say this? If I am Austin Community College, right? So I'm here in Austin right now. Austin Community College is like stone's throw from me. If I am them and I have a computer science associate's degree, and 2 years ago, my associate's degree was serviceable and it was fine. But now that computer science degree means doing machine learning. It means doing this and this and this and doing, more front-end development than back-end development. If it means working against APIs, RESTful API, like whatever it is, right? If I have low overhead and I can change my curriculum on a regular basis, year over year over year, I now go from having a 2-year degree, which again, some of my views on this are ancient, but a 2-year degree 10, 15 years ago, people were like, oh, way to go. Now, like you said, you can, in a year, in 6 months, in 2 years, you can learn all the necessary skills. Things are changing so quickly that doing like a liberal arts prereq in order to get a 4-year degree is like, why the fuck are you wasting my time? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, how do I best learn accounting, running a business, managing my time, being empathetic, whatever it is to be successful in the gig economy? Just teach me what I need to know. Don't make me take 6 semesters of Spanish unless I need to learn Spanish in order to do what I need to do, right? Like, so there's no longer these bloated, especially at a community college level or these more nimble organizations and institutions. There's not this bloated 4-year degree because nobody has 4 years to figure out how to deal.
So it's interesting. Yeah. So I work a lot with academic institutions of varying sort of sizes and ilks. And a lot of the conversation that I hear around this space is the threat to academia. So this, how the world is changing.
I will grab my pitchfork and light that torch on fire. Continue.
and see, again, this is one of those things that I don't see as a threat. I see it as an opportunity to morph and grow into the future, what that is. And it might not look like what it's looked like before. And it doesn't mean that there isn't value in. So I have a liberal arts education that I absolutely loved and cherished, and in fact is responsible in large part for what I've been able to create post-school, thanks to the critical thinking abilities and all these other sorts of skills that it's given me. I would say that is the only model. Like, how can schools start to think about how to deliver the content that they have in a way that's going to be more closely mapped to preparing students, right? So what's a university's objective? There's research. A piece of it's doing and producing research that, that's cutting edge. And a piece of it is preparing students for the future, for their futures. And those things they don't need to compete. But because the world outside of academia is changing so quickly, then maybe the way that we're delivering classes needs to be different. I mean, this massive partnership that the global management educators, that the deans and directors that Yale put together created, all of these universities around the globe created a master's in management that they leverage each other's programs with in order to support students in a way. Like, it's brilliant.
Right.
It's brilliant.
And it's, to me, that very idea is so common sense that it's almost baffling, angering, just whatever, that it didn't happen sooner. I mean, we talk about how you mentioned how it was like a threat to academia, yet who was one of the first organizations on iTunes U to like publish their entire computer science curricula or wherever it was MIT.
Yeah.
And they realized that there is value they're delivering, not just through lectures and recordings and things like that. Like, they can still give this information away for free, and there is value in other places, and it's not affecting their bottom line, so to speak. Just give this information to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And you're not losing, like, people aren't like, oh, you know what, fuck it. I don't need to go to MIT and get a degree. I'm just going to look at it online in my parents' basement. Like,
yeah.
Nobody's
people
doing
who are going to go are still going to go.
Yeah.
And
you're going to make the world better through your contribution.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like
an institution of academia.
Right. Yeah. So that raises fundamental questions about, like, what's the purpose? And if our purpose is to educate, then what does that mean? Where is our space in education? And I don't know what's right or wrong. And in fact, I don't think that there's any right or wrong or good or bad in that. I just, it's just,
I know what's right or wrong.
Oh, of course you do. But I just think they're interesting questions to consider, and questions to consider with a bias toward action. So you don't need to overhaul a budget entirely in order to run a 6-week pilot that'll cost you $200 to figure out if a new concept is going to work or not.
Yeah.
And there are infinite ways to do that and to test that and to see. And so I think, I'm a huge proponent of piloting tiny projects and experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't, and then deciding to roll them out on a bigger scale or not. But even then, along the way, piloting and iterating, because especially because the world is not static.
Yeah. Now, I wish that this was a sponsor of the show, because I would just do like a little ding there. Not a sponsor of the show, but one of my favorite books of all time. You should absolutely read it, which basically takes a lot of what Elatia has just said and distills it into how you should run any operation, be it a new business, be it an initiative at your current business, be it a pledge drive at your church. It's called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and it is one of my favorite books of all time. And it basically talks about, try to figure out if your product has market fit before you have a product. If you're going to sell widgets, then create a landing page for people to buy widgets, and then, market the shit out of them. And then if people click on your button to buy widgets, you just say, our widgets will be available soon. Thank you for your interest. Sign up for my email list, and I will send you an email when the widgets are ready.
Yeah.
Be lean. Try something out for 6 weeks. Like you said, try this 6-week certification course out. If it doesn't work, be gathering data at every step of the way to figure out if people just are they falling off after week 1? After week 6, are they saying this shit sucked? Like, what's going on, right? Like, gather data constantly. And then as you're building the product, you're still doing, again, I'm a nerd, recovering software developer. We data drive every little stupid thing to the point where sometimes the data is all just like this big cloud and nobody knows how to make any sense of it. but we should be doing this at a university level. We should be doing this at a, at a community college level, at a Harvard, Stanford level. Like everybody should be, my personal opinion, I keep saying should a lot. I'm going to should all over myself if I'm not careful. Everybody should be focused on results, not protecting their current interests or their interests over the last 100 years. If that's what you're set up and what your purpose is.
Yeah. I mean, I think this raises questions, right? Like, and with all of this, I understand the want and the desire and the need to hold on to what was. And there's value in what we've learned before. So I think, I can say what I observe and what I feel. We oftentimes, by going into the future and focusing on what's coming next, we do that without acknowledging what we've built to date. And that's where a disruption or a disconnect can come in, or an unwillingness to move forward is an approach and this is something that I've had to learn in how I deliver what I talk about the future of work, is instead of being like, look at all this great shiny new stuff over here, which is which is like what's really exciting to me.
Sorry, I do that shit all the time. So
I know you and I are squirrels and like, in that sort of way. It's like, okay. But the really giving value and credence to what's been built and the hard work that people have put in and the intellectual capital and the time and everything else, and recognizing it for the amazingness that it is. And okay, great, given all of this, there's new stuff going on. So how do we want to take the bulk of what we have from before and figure out a new future, whatever that is, and accelerate the occurrence of that new future with the stuff that we've done in the past.
Yeah. I love that, because it's really pointing out that it's not we've been doing this, but now this is reality.
Yeah. And now you're not valid anymore, and your career is, like
individual, institutional, company, college, university, whatever, like that, every level. It's not about, what you've been doing or what is now the reality. It's what you've been doing and now this, to quote John Oliver's show on HBO. And now this. So it's like it's building on top of things. It's not about swapping out one thing for the other. That's excellent. Yeah. Alicia, I want to give you a chance to maybe get some closing thoughts on technology. There's an entire section of this article about virtual and augmented reality, which I could probably nerd out on for an additional 2 hours. Maybe we'll talk about that at a later date. But there are 2 paragraphs of this article that I would like to close with about current curricula and how we teach young people and things like that. But I would like to close the episode out on that if possible. So what thoughts, before I do so, do you have on, people's mindset, tactical approaches to just how do you prepare yourself for, again, an unknown future where, Keanu Reeves or Arnold Schwarzenegger or a robot is going to come and take your job changing tires over a Jiffy Lube. So
yeah. The first piece is flexing the muscle of risk tolerance into a game, and just getting practice at it. Now, understanding how to juggle things that you're not familiar with or try new things out. Those are easy ways to do. Like try a new course this week, just to begin to flex that muscle. The second piece around mindset is really just, again, that distinction between the world as I wish it were and wish it would stay, and the world as it is, and starting to explore what that looks like. And the third piece is around just this analogy of surfing, right? The illusion of control and stability and security that we have today is an illusion of control and security and stability. So given that everything really is in constant movement, how can we start to look at what's occurring in our world as a wave that we need to learn how to ride, as an ocean that we need to learn how to get into relationship with, as opposed to, this tsunami that's coming at us, or something that we can control, like positively or negatively.
Right.
So those are the 3.
So get over yourself, the illusion that you can control, your environment.
Yeah, because you don't.
No, you really don't, even when we think we do, which completely, totally guilty of that. Learning the difference between control, influence, and just fuck all, no control.
There we went, for sure, over the line.
Of course. Should be adults watching this show. Why would children be figuring out the future of work? Their future is bright and right in front of them. Anyway. All right. Well, folks, I appreciate you spending this time with us. I'm going to close out here by reading 2 paragraphs of this amazing article, which we will link to in the show notes in the description. But it talks about a lot of how we teach young kids today. And for those who are listening who are parents or teachers or just influencers of children, be you coaches, whatever, be thinking about this and be thinking about how you might change your approach to shaping the minds of the future. And I quote, "It's tragic how very few curricula focus on teaching young minds how to learn and unlearn effectively. In the post-industrial era, the impact of technology has meant we have to be agile and adaptive to unpredictable consequences of disruption. We may have to learn skills and mindsets on demand and set aside ones that are no longer required throughout our lives. There's more. These integrated lifelong learning systems could also be critical in tackling the many sources of unhappiness and mental health issues seen in society today. As pointed out by the Education 2030 report, continuous evaluation of individual learning processes can be designed to prevent people from becoming unhappy, and programs aimed at eliminating prejudice and hate could bring about a more beautiful, loving world." I couldn't say any better, which is why I didn't write this article or any article. Elatia, thank you so much for joining us again and co-hosting this wonderful show.
Only always.
Our amazing listeners. Been a great conversation. I can't wait to do it again soon. Probably talk to you in a couple of days.
Probably. I'll see you then.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Every single one of you. Love you. Talk to you soon.